Hey, it's Tori, and welcome back to my channel. Today we have the lovely Helle from Ignea here on the channel. How are you doing today, Helle?
I'm pretty much okay. Thank you for having me, for inviting me.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come on the channel. It's an absolute privilege to be able to actually physically talk to you because my channel is where I discovered Ignea and discovered you guys. And, it's exciting to be getting new music from you, especially with everything that is happening with your country right now. You do have a new album coming out, which is called Dreams of Lands Unseen on the 28th of April. How are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling really glad about it because this album was written actually in 2021. So, it's been brewing for quite a lot of time and we put a lot of effort into it. So it feels really great to finally show it to the world, because we truly believe that this album is the best work that we've done so far. And I like the concept of the album. And I guess this is pretty much the first time that all the band members like all the songs. So we truly believe in it and we want people to hear it. And yeah, we had to postpone the release because of the war. And that's why I'm glad that despite the war is still going on, we managed to finish the recording of the album. And finally, the first song is already out there. The next one is coming soon. And yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, I was going to ask, that leads me on to my next question I had for you. How has that process been for you guys writing an album and getting to the studio and everything that people like me would take for granted?
Yeah, so basically, we took the entire 2021 to come up with the concept of the album, finish all the songs, all the recordings, and we recorded half of the album before the full-scale war started. And of course, in the first several months, we just couldn't think of continuing with the recording because all the band members are from Kiev, and the Kiev region, not the city but the Kiev region was occupied, and really it was very dangerous. I mean, it still is, but back then, I mean, it was absolutely insane. When the region was deoccupied, we decided that we could at least try to continue with the recordings, but it still was pretty hard because, we've got a military curfew. So even right now, if it's past 11 p.m., you cannot go outside. And back then it was 7 p.m. or something like that. And we
Yeah.
had to drive, 3 hours to our studio, which is located on another part of the city. And there were multiple checkpoints. So it was literally 3 hours there, then trying to record the album in between air raid sirens and I don't know, blackouts and whatever, and then 3 hours back. And but still we managed to record it, and we were actually hoping we could still release it in autumn because was October was the initial planning for this album. But we couldn't film any music videos because a lot of our fellow production crews, they were either at the front line or they just couldn't work properly because back then we had a very bad air defense system in Ukraine. So literally if something was attacked, it was hit. And that's why, usually you film videos somewhere in big spaces, or maybe outside in nature, everything was impossible. So yeah, so we postponed this release, but finally it's here. And we actually recorded 3 music videos in late winter. And we recorded 3 music videos in 2 months during the biggest blackouts, power outages, and missile attacks in Kiev and Ukraine. And it was really insane. And I'm so grateful to our production teams who are also from Ukraine went through all of this with us. And yeah, so you already could see the Nomad's Luck video. And if you go to the Napalm Records YouTube channel, there is also like a small video with making off
Yeah,
of this video.
I've watched it, yeah, because I was going to ask you, 'cause that leads me perfectly to the next question is how was that for you guys filming with generators and not having what I every day take for granted is like just being able to flip that switch and have electricity. How was that?
It was insane, like even not on the filming days, because we knew that there would be problems. That's why we rented the generators, we had a plan, but I mean, filming music videos has a lot of pre-production to do,
Mm-hmm.
and during the pre-production you have to rent out spaces, you have to talk to a production team. And when we had like these huge blackouts, sometimes for several days, any internet connection and cell connection was down, and our production team is located in different cities of Ukraine, so we basically couldn't talk and discuss the video production properly.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, we somehow managed it. So sometimes the internet was so bad we could only text each other and explain, things. And really, how, I don't know, maybe not everybody will remember this, but like back then we didn't have mobile phones or whatever, like, in the
Mm-hmm.
90s or whatever. So
Yeah.
this is how we just had an engagement that we would meet in a certain spot in a certain time, just in case like we don't have the connection. So this is how it went. And for example, for Nomad's Luck, we also wanted to film a bit more in this greenhouse that you can see in the video.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, even the generator was down, because I mean, back then everybody was using the generators and they could just break down or whatever. So maybe the video would have been a little bit different, but I still am glad how it came out.
Yeah, I think it was really beautifully done considering, the struggles you had to make it. And that then leads me on to the next question is, can you go more into detail about what the lyrics are about for Nomad's Look?
Yeah, so basically, our next album is about Sofia Yablonska, and she was a Ukrainian traveler, writer, photographer, and she traveled to like across the globe in 1930s, and she documented the lives of tribes and natives. So she traveled a lot alone in
Mm-hmm.
1930s to very dangerous places, and those dangers were like I don't know, some toxic plants, or maybe some superstitions of the natives. Sometimes, like I remember reading that she's been to the Sahara Desert, and I guess that she ran out of fuel or something like that. So I mean, she could have died so many times, but she still was brave enough and curious enough to keep exploring like all these lands unseen. So this is what this song is basically about. It's about all the risks and dangers of the travel. And like in our interpretation of the song, time is the only danger that she cannot face, because
Mm-hmm.
like you cannot beat time,
Right. Right. Yeah, that's because that's also another question I had for you is if you could explain more about who Sofia Yablonska was, because until your single, I had no idea who she was, and I have Googled her a little, but I feel like hearing it from the mouth of somebody who is extremely passionate about her would just be something wonderful for me and for the people watching this video to to hear. So
Yeah, I can say that she isn't as famous even in Ukraine, and that's really disappointing, to me.
yeah.
And actually, like in the beginning, we wanted to write an album. I mean, when I heard the demos, I wanted to make something about traveling. And at first, I thought that we could dedicate like each song to some famous traveler that traveled in the past. But when I found out about Sofia Jablonska, I was so mind blown that I decided to just dedicate the entire album to her. And I read all the books that are out there. And even now, our fans are asking like where we could read more. But the problem is like I only have like the books are only in Ukrainian, and I guess something is in French because like the second part of her life she spent in France. But it's really a pity that there isn't much information. And with this album, we want to tell the world about her more.
Yeah, because I'm extremely interested because I personally myself, I absolutely love like period dramas or strong female characters in period times because it was so male led back then, and I mean, still to this day, it is kind of to a point, but you don't really hear of strong female characters coming from like even all the way up until maybe the 50s, 60s. And it's just, I'm really excited for it. I can't wait to hear it. And I was wondering if you could give us any spoilers for the next single or not.
Yeah, I also mentioned about this case of her traveling to Sahara. And well, I actually like the next single is coming pretty soon. So it's going to be for the song Dunes. If you go to our website or the Napalm website, you can see the track list. So it's basically the first song on the album. And I would say that it's going to have like more Middle Eastern vibes, but it will still have a small part of Ukrainian folk music and culture or whatever, because like throughout this album we wanted to show and we wanted people to hear not only the countries to which Sofia Jablonska traveled, but also indicate that she's from Ukraine. And actually when she traveled and wherever she traveled, she always emphasized that she's from Ukraine, and she tried not only to embrace the culture of the locals, but also tell them about the Ukrainian culture. And it's really interesting because, like, for example, in the song Opiumist that you will hear after the album release, is actually about her communication and conversation with an old Chinese guy with whom she smoked opium when she was there. And they always had these intercultural communications comparing the cultures of China and Ukraine. Can you imagine, like in 1930s?
Yeah.
It's so interesting and mind-blowing for me, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like even to this day. I mean, I'm British myself, but I live in America, and there's still like so many cultural differences. And then my sister lives in Sweden, so I've got to visit there last year. I was very fortunate to go over there, and just being able to talk to like the Swedes or the Americans here, and be able to talk about the differences. And I just imagining how it would have been for people back then when travel wasn't as as available as it is today, and it was incredibly difficult, especially on your own as a woman. And then coming across all these incredible characters and being able to document that, as because she was a photographer too, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was actually a photographer and videographer, and she started in France. And actually, when she went on her second trip, I believe she was actually hired by a company to document all these distant corners because they wanted to promote traveling as well. So I mean, it wasn't just like that she had some I don't know, parents who could sponsor her travel. I mean, this was her real job. And I think like this gives in my eyes her even more respect, because she wasn't just like a traveler. She was a professional, and actually she made a breakthrough in travel photography because she was very good at making friends with the local tribes. And even when she traveled to Bora Bora, which was absolutely not popular back then, she made friends with the locals, and they called her Teura, which is translated like a red bird. And actually, we wanted to give Teura the album title at first, but it's not as appealing, as Dreams of Lens and Scene, unless you know the backstory. So that's why Yeah, we decided to change the title. Yeah, and even when she traveled to Muslim countries, and like the attitude of Muslim countries to women, how they treat them,
Hmm.
even there, like the locals, they respected her. And one of the local men invited her to his home and showed her like all his wives and everything. And I mean, she was literally the first like person outside to visit his place because she was a woman and she could look at his wives,
Right, right, which is insanely mind blowing. If when you think about that, it's it sounds like you're making me want to like go and research even more into her as well, because I find women in history super fascinating. Like my favorite icon of history is Queen Elizabeth I, just because of what she achieved. In such a male dominated, we'd had queens, but she wasn't the king that Henry VIII wanted, yet she turned out to be the ruler that he wanted. And it's crazy to think about these women that pioneered and really helped, set the bar for us as women. And
Yeah, basically they created the world we are right now in,
yeah,
like as women.
yeah,
So
yeah, it's amazing. So do you have a single called what was the Redbird?
no, so basically Teura, we decided to have like the intro called
Okay,
Teura because this is like something that leads into this
yeah,
album.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But like this word is also used in one of the songs sung in Ukrainian language. Yeah.
oh, I was wondering if you were gonna include any of your native tongue in some of the songs, and you just answered that for me, which makes me even more
Yeah.
excited because I love when. Granted, yes, I'll have to go like look up the English translation, but it's the same as like you have bands like Rammstein or bands like that who do sing in their own tongue, and it's fascinating for me as a because I'm just an English speaker. I don't know any of the languages, but with music it doesn't matter because if like I'm not to put pressure on you as the vocalist, but if the vocalist is doing their job for me, I can feel what is being said.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I can absolutely relate. And actually, before we had one song in Ukrainian, and we were shocked how many people liked this particular song, and they requested more songs in Ukrainian. And for this album, it made perfect sense to make. We actually have 2.5 songs in Ukrainian on this album. And when we were writing these songs, it just came out very naturally. And sometimes, like when we write a song, we just imagine which language it should be in.
Hmm.
And with these songs, like Ukrainian works the best.
Yeah, and it makes sense because she was Ukrainian herself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm so excited. I absolutely loved the first single, Nomad's Luck. It was beautiful. Like you could hear all the cultural references throughout the instrumentation of it. And then, you've got your wonderful vocals on top of that and then those harshes. Like how do you take care of your voice?
With me, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, my body doesn't have any compromises, so I just have to practice every day. And
Hmm.
when I don't, it gets really bad. So when we were filming like 3 videos in 2 months, and I was like, and we were living in all these blackouts, I mean, I really had no time to sing. And of course, like all my stability went a little bit down, and I'm getting back on track.
Hmm.
But basically, just practicing every day, not drinking alcohol when I'm on tour. I don't smoke either. What else? I have my, personal selection of some vocal teas that I really like and that I recommend to others as well.
Hmm.
And again, when on tour, try not to speak unless you're on stage.
Yeah.
Because like I had made this mistake before, and by the end of the tour, I nearly lost my voice simply because I was talking, at the merch table and whatever. So next time I'm there, I'm just smiling and having like, a sign that I'm not talking. I'm just taking pictures and signing everything you want.
It's got to be really difficult because you want to interact with fans, and you want to thank them for
Absolutely.
coming and have conversations with them, because you get to meet so many interesting people who come to your shows, and of course they've got stories of how your songs have inspired them, and it must be, oh god, it must be, one, it must be frustrating, and two, it must be
It
just
is.
just so hard to keep quiet. I don't know if I could do that, so props to
I
you for
still don't
doing
know. I don't
it.
know, but I mean, again, I heard it from so many singers so far. I mean, for some it works, but again, with myself, doesn't work. So I just have to, stay professional and just take it as it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's better to tour with such limitations than not to tour at all. So
Yeah, I agree. And I know we spoke for a little bit before we started filming this about touring, because I was going to ask you about if you were going to do a promotion tour for the album, if you'd just like to explain to people watching this about what we discussed a
yeah.
little bit.
So first of all, I think many people know that nowadays music industry, like metal music industry, is super oversaturated, and really it's hard for bands to get out there because everything is booked several years in advance. And after COVID, everybody's touring, everybody's putting out records, and I know that even for fans, it's sometimes hard to pick up the cons to which show to go.
Mm-hmm.
The transportation costs are high and everything, and for every band it's hard out there. For us it's even harder because we're from Ukraine and the war is still going on here. And the guys I have, like, I'm the only girl in the band, and
Mm-hmm.
basically all men from 18 to 60 years old cannot leave the country since the 24th of February last year. We traveled to Europe in summer to play some festivals as cultural ambassadors, and we really had an official, approval of leaving the country just for the shows. And this is how it worked with the rest of the bands. But recently, like, it became known that some artists, they broke down the rules, they didn't return, and those are like even not from the metal industry. So, and that is why, like, it's becoming hard. The procedure is much harder and it's now being transformed. So that's why, like, right now we just don't know how it goes. And
Yeah.
for example, for some bands, it might be the case that, for example, in April they won't be able, for example, to go on tour. And our tour, our promotional tour, the majority of it is planned like for autumn, and it's in process of being booked, and we wanted to have some dates for May, but we don't know
Yeah.
how it works. And yeah. So again, if you can, please support Ukrainian artists, because we might have a chance of not being able to tour at all. And by support, I don't mean that you necessarily need to buy the records, because I get it, there are a lot of albums out there, but just streaming our music and maybe sharing it with your friends, it really makes a huge difference for us right now.
Yeah, and that, I bet that, because I am from the reactor community, I bet that helps push your music out there as well to other people. Like, do you feel about the reaction scene and reaction videos?
I actually, to be honest, like before, I wasn't a fan of reaction video channels, but I just think that throughout the past years, like, this niche, it has grown and became more professional. So, I mean, it's more interesting now to watch these reaction videos, and also because, like, the reaction channels have gotten some kind of audience, and it's really interesting to read like more comments and how people also react, not only
Mm-hmm.
the people who are hosting the channel. So I guess that nowadays, especially because the advertising on social media, it works way worse, and I think that this is like a very huge direction for artists to be promoted and discovered. So thank you so much for doing your job, because like it's really, it helps us a lot.
No, I did this purely because of my love for music. At the end of the day, I just you know, we get stuck in that little bubble of music that we love, and it's hard to expand from that. So I personally got into watching reaction videos, and music is such a huge part of my life. Even though I don't necessarily have any like musical talent or knowledge or anything like that, but I know how it makes me feel, and I know like from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, if like my husband and I aren't having a conversation or if I'm not watching a show, I have music on. It's just part of my everyday life. So I was like, maybe I can do this channel thing and find new music. And I have the amount of bands I've discovered, like yourself, who I probably would never have found without doing this. And, you know, whenever you do release new singles, I will absolutely be there to film a reaction and to get it and to push you guys out. And of course, people seeing this interview, they're going to learn more about what the album is about. And of course, it is available right now for pre-order. So yeah, go guys, if you enjoy Ignea and their music, please, please, please go ahead and pre-order that album. The link is going to be in the description, along with all of Ignea's, social medias and where you can find them, like Facebook, Instagram, their YouTube channel, all of that good stuff. So yeah, please guys, it would be, an incredible, incredible thing to do. But I don't want to keep you any longer, Helle. I know you've had a busy, busy day, but I appreciate you so very much for joining us here on the channel. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to talk to you in person to person and to learn more about the album as well. It's just grown my excitement to listen to it as well. So I can't wait.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate what you do, and I hope that your viewers will also enjoy this interview. And stay tuned for our new single. It's coming up really soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to become a Taurian. Speaking of becoming a Taurian, all of my social media links and my Discord link are down in the description. We'd absolutely love to have you come hang out in the Discord community. And I will see you guys in the next video. Rock on.